Hey everyone, welcome to Film Rush. This is a weekly podcast where two cousins get together and talk about movies. My name is Logan Vaughn, and joining me today is my cousin John.
Hey everyone, I'm John Vaughn. Thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Welcome to Film Rush.
And we're back again in 2021. This is the second episode, the 99th episode of Film Rush podcast to talk about movies and TV on streaming platforms. Logan, how are you doing this fine evening?
I'm doing pretty good. We're recording this on Thursday, January 14th, and we're going to be releasing this on Wednesday the 20th, which is the inauguration of President Biden. So I guess once this comes out, he'll either be president or we'll be in Civil War number 2. I'm not quite sure.
Civil War 2, Electric Boogaloo.
I like the Marvel Civil War, but this kind of Civil War is not so much fun.
This one will be less flashy.
Yeah, but dude, we got some good stuff in the pipeline for tonight's show. I got a couple of things on your list that I'm very curious to know about because you've got some stuff in there that I've never seen. Honestly, now that I'm looking at it, I don't think I've seen anything on your list this week.
Interesting.
That's rare. So
that is interesting.
Other than one thing, your Avoid in your TV show, I've seen that, but everything else is fresh to me.
I'm gonna be doing a lot of pitching today.
Hell yeah!
So I guess in the spirit of pitching, you want to get into it?
Absolutely. Let's get into it.
I don't know why that's not even a pun. I don't even know why that was. Speaking of pitching, you want to get into it? Sure, I guess. Is this baseball or something else? Sure. Okay, so let's start with, do you want to start with yours?
Yeah, let's do it. All right, so we're going to get into movies first, then we're going to get into TV shows, and then at the end, individual reports. John assigned me Chef. I assigned John There Will Be Blood, and then we'll assign each other something for next week. So, first thing off the docket. Since my movie is Chef, I sought out other food-related type cinema that led me to watch The Founder. I had seen The Founder before. I caught this back in theaters, but Jacqueline had never seen it. And so I thought that after we watched Chef together, that it was absolutely appropriate to go and watch The Founder. The Founder, if you are not familiar with this movie, came out, I believe, in 2017, 2018.
16, it says 2016.
Yeah, it looks like it. Yeah, like Christmas 2016, but the wide release was in January 2017.
Oh, yeah, January 2017. Kind of like that
Oscar
weird
movies.
Release. Yeah, but honestly, one of the few Oscar bait movies that actually ends up being good. Like, a lot of them are very, forced, and they're like, we want an award kind of feeling. But this film, I'm glad this film exists, unlike a lot of other Oscar bait
I'm right there with you. It's one of those, heavy-hitting dramas where the main character is kind of a business asshole, and there's a lot of movies that kind of fit that type. But Michael Keaton is the lead. He is playing Ray Kroc, the founder, if you will, of McDonald's. Nick Offerman and John Carroll Lynch are playing the actual McDonald's brothers, Dick and Mac. A whole bunch of other people in here. Super, super good cast. Really deep IMDb page. Man, this movie, it's one of those dramas that should be boring and stuffy, but instead it's really electric and kinetic. I really enjoy some of the nervous pacing that comes with this movie. Michael Keaton is playing I don't know if washed out is the right word, but I would say unsuccessful milkshake salesman. And he stumbles across the McDonald brothers, and they are super successful with 5 stores. And he gets this big idea that they are so good at what they do, they need to franchise. They need to go out across the whole country. And it is a really, really cool story about how McDonald's grew to be what it is today. This is one of those movies that's going to make you a little bit sick to your stomach and uncomfortable because Ray Kroc isn't exactly the founder of McDonald's, in my opinion. And there's a whole bunch of business screw-overy that happens in this movie, but I really enjoy it, man. The scenes are so much fun. I very much enjoy the phone call arguments that you get between Ray Kroc and It's usually, I want to say John Carroll Lynch on the phone playing Mac McDonald, but Nick Offerman gets on the phone too.
Yeah, the one of them's more timid than the other, like in terms of confrontation with Ray Kroc. So if I remember correctly, isn't it usually... You said it's usually John Carroll Lynch and Nick Offerman's in the background?
No, I think it's the other way around, because John Carroll Lynch's character is the one that has, I think, the history of heart failure from trying to run the business too hard before.
Yeah, and he's just a more quiet guy who's taking it easy. Because, the whole linchpin of the movie is that the McDonald brothers created, while a very efficient, quick nickel burger joint that was, very good, they didn't want to make it big. They weren't planning on making it into this empire, but Ray Kroc saw a good idea and thought, ka-ching! And that's pretty much the whole linchpin of it.
Yeah, it's really exciting to watch this business sort of give birth and grow. The McDonald's are just such interesting characters because you see the framework in this movie for fast food as we know it today, because it didn't exist back then in the 50s when McDonald's was starting to grow as a business, and so you get to see Nick Offerman's character basically give birth to half of the amazing ideas about fast food restaurants that we all know and love today. I love the scene where they're using chalk to kind of like design the inside of the restaurant. I think that is a really, really cool scene. This movie's just absolutely worth checking out. I don't want to get into it too much because if you haven't seen it, I really don't want to spoil more than we probably already have. But I think if I had to pick one scene in this movie, it's the scene where he meets BJ Novak's what is he, like a lawyer, a real estate guy?
I think he's definitely like not 100% business side. Like he's a businessman, but he's not on the up and up. He's definitely one of those types.
But that's the famous, you're not in the restaurant business, you're in the real estate business scene. I
love that that's a common fact nowadays.
Right. Movie rips my heart out towards the end once the backstabbery kind of goes down, but I really enjoyed watching The Founder. I give it an 8 out of 10. I don't think that it's like one of the best movies of the last several years, but I think it's absolutely worth watching. And while you're watching it, you're going to really, really have fun with this movie. It does a really fun job of representing McDonald's and kind of showing you what the brand was like back in that vintage era before the clown got involved, before Ronald McDonald was like a character, and the Hamburglar and all the other stuff that we all know from the 90s, the Happy Meals and whatnot. So I really enjoyed seeing this, the way they do burgers, the way they do milkshakes and fries, and the prices are so damn cheap. Founder is absolutely worth watching on Netflix.
Cool, yeah, I agree. I liked The Founder a lot. I think I ended up watching it because you assigned it to me on the podcast like a long time ago. So it's cool that it comes around like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I'm glad that came around.
Man, that must have been so long ago that I have forgotten.
Oh, yeah. I only remember just because, that was my reason for watching it. Otherwise, I wouldn't remember it either. I think it was one of our earlier episodes.
Nice.
So that's cool. I wanted to bring up a movie today.
Yeah, what you got?
It already got featured, at least on my banner on Netflix. I don't know how the banner exactly works on Netflix because it doesn't seem like everyone gets the same exact highlight at the top. At least not all the time. Sometimes people do. But for me, at least, Rango got put up at the top for whatever reason. And that is a Johnny Depp film.
Is that the Johnny Depp lizard movie?
Yes. It is basically CGI animation movie, and he's this lizard who finds himself in a western town, and it's basically, the IMDb says Rango is an ordinary chameleon. Oh, sorry, chameleon, not lizard, who accidentally winds up in the town of Dirt, a lawless outpost in the Wild West in desperate need of a new sheriff. And I guess kind of spoilers, but like Rango is a city boy chameleon, and he has to learn how to survive in this Western environment. It's a spaghetti Western meets silly, I guess DreamWorks kind of comedy. I actually don't know what the studio was that's behind this. I'm trying to find it on IMDb, but it's like buried weirdly someplace. But it's directed by Gore Verbinski.
I don't remember the studio, but I know Yeah, Gore Verbinski. Like, what on earth?
Yeah, so some people would know him from things like Pirates of the Caribbean, which I think is where the Johnny Depp connection happens here. And I guess the Lone Ranger in 20...
No, Lone Ranger is trash, and so is A Cure for Wellness. I really detested watching A Cure for Wellness.
I never saw that, but he seems to be... I don't know. He doesn't hit on full cylinders every film he makes, but I think Gore Verbinski is like a moderately good director, not to be insulting or anything, but like seems to be fine. And I think Rango is one of his better ones. Like it does have some odd humor. It's a bit bizarre looking, so maybe not every kid will like it. It's very washed out in the color palette area. But I enjoy it. It's just enough weird that I can appreciate its humor, but not so much that like Depp is going off the deep end or anything. So I think it's worth a good time. It's worth some consideration if you have like a 12-year-old, I guess. Like that, I'd figure that's around the age to watch this type of movie.
Yeah, I have never seen Rango. I like a lot of the voice actors that are in it. The story just seemed... Like, it just seemed like one of those movies that I never needed to see. But, you know, I like Johnny Depp. I like Abigail Breslin. I like Elsa Fisher. So maybe I will check this out, because it did show up on my my Netflix banner as well. And I've scrolled past it several times on Netflix, but I've never seen it. Maybe I'll give it a watch.
And so it's Paramount Pictures and Nickelodeon Movies I finally found. But yeah, I think it's worth a check out. But I wanted to confirm that I found what studios the production credit was under.
Nice.
Because I didn't want to mislead anyone. But yep, give that a check out. That's one of my recommends this week. Logan, you also have another recommend to get into. So what is this one?
Yeah, I mentioned business movies with a backstabbing asshole as the main character. So I couldn't not talk about The Social Network. It's on Netflix. I hadn't seen it in a couple of years. This movie is phenomenal. It really is one of the best movies of the last 10 years or so. I don't know even what to talk about, because this movie is just so damn good, and I'm confident we've talked about this on the show before. I didn't look to see if we had, but
it's definitely been mentioned at least.
Surely it has. But I remember it had probably been 2 or 3 years since I'd seen it. So the other night I was sitting there and I was like, you know, really want to watch the Social Network. I'm scared that it's going to be a little bit slow and boring, because I've seen it like, you know, 5 or 6 times throughout the years, if not more. So I was a little bit scared it was going to be boring. And it was like within the first 5 minutes, like my palms were sweaty and I was like hooked. And that feeling just never let up.
I haven't watched this in a very long time either, so I've always been kind of worried to click on it as well. So I totally get that.
I very quickly gave it a 10 out of 10 after I was done watching it again. Jesse Eisenberg is so fucking good as Zuckerberg, and of course Mr. Spider-Man as Eduardo is where this movie, for me, the heart of the movie is. I absolutely love Andrew Garfield in this movie. Probably my favorite performance from him. But I love this movie. I love the score. I love the script. I love the dialogue. Having David Fincher direct it and Aaron Sorkin writing it, that is just unreal. And then how do you not love like the Winklevoss twins?
Two Army Hammers.
Yeah, the double Army Hammer. I think that's great. You don't often see those, twin type movies. I know there's The Parent Trap with Lindsay Lohan, and then there's that mobster movie with Tom Hardy. They just don't happen super often, and when they do, it's usually really, really weird. But for whatever reason, I love spending time with the Winklevoss twins in this movie. Army Hammer is just awesome in this. What do you have any favorite scenes or favorite aspects from this movie that you want to highlight before we move on?
I remember only a few scenes because, man, I think the last time I watched this was around the time it came out. But I remember a lot of the courtroom scenes where Jesse Eisenberg does his monologues, basically. I remember the arc I remember most distinctly is the Justin Timberlake kind of weaseling his way in, and Andrew Garfield becoming more and more kind of less involved as his character was in life. Some of the movie is exaggerated, of course, but from what I understand, it's mostly just the performances are exaggerated, but the events are relatively similar. But yeah, I liked this movie. And as you said, I've always been worried to click on it again because when I saw it when I was so much younger, I was like, maybe I thought it was so smart when I was younger. And I don't think that if I clicked on it now, I'd be like, this is dumb. No, I'd be like, oh, well, I think I overblew it. I don't want to watch something that I've already expanded beyond its potential in my head. So I'm glad you have restored some faith in it. I definitely need to watch this soon.
Yeah, it, just with the decade kind of turning over here over the last 2 years, there's been so many conversations about the best movies of the decade, and The Social Network counts because it came out in 2010. And for some reason, anytime I hear somebody say, like, yeah, Social Network's the best movie of the last, 10 years, I'm like, really? Like, I mean, there's so many great movies. Like, why do critics especially keep going back to The Social Network? Like, what's the big deal? I know it's great. Don't get me wrong, but it can't be as good as everyone is saying it is these days. And after watching it the other night, I was really just on fire for the movie. It's one of those weird experiences where, like, I really want to watch it twice in the same week. I don't know why. I don't normally do that these days, but it is that good. So Social Network gets a full recommend from me.
Awesome. So yeah, I'll have to check that out for sure. So I have one that, and you said you've not seen any of these before, so I wanted to make sure I have the summary for it ready to go. But it's called a movie called Stranger Than Fiction. And in this movie, the summary is IRS auditor Harold Crick suddenly finds himself the subject of narration only he can hear. Narration that begins to affect his entire life, from his work to his love interest to his death.
I like that. That sounds kind of fun.
It is a good fun time, but here's the thing. I don't remember how much of it is a twist that you don't see coming, so I'm going to get kind of vague because I don't want to accidentally spoil something, because this movie came out in 2006. I probably saw it like 2007 or 8. So this is, I have some old memories of it, but it is a good movie. It's one of those few titles that I watched Will Ferrell in and I completely bought. Like, not just on an acting level, but being able to forget that I'm watching Will Ferrell. I've never really been able to do that with him as a performer because he is this, I mean, he's Will Ferrell. Every time you see him, you have certain expectations of what you're about to get. And while a lot of his, tropes and mannerisms are present here, there is a tinge of sincerity amongst it because it's comedy, drama, fantasy. It's like a weird triad of those genres, and it works really well from what I remember of it. I definitely have it on my list to rewatch it soon because I do remember enjoying it so much. But I think the plot itself is definitely worth a go, and it has a great cast of like Will Ferrell, Maggie Gyllenhaal, Jake Gyllenhaal's sister, Dustin Hoffman, Emma Thompson, and I guess kind of randomly Queen Latifah, but she does good. I remember her character now that I remember she's in the movie.
I kind of remember her from like the trailer.
Yeah. I remember her when I saw her on the poster. I was like, oh right, I remember her character now. She did good. She was fine. I think this is worth a check out. It's definitely not a bad movie. I think it's just maybe up to certain people's tastes, but I encourage people to give it a go.
Nice. So do you think this is one of Will Ferrell's best performances, or is it just one of his most likable?
I'm inclined to say one of his best performances, but I've not seen a wide breadth of work from him yet, personally. I may be forgetting about a title where he does a genuinely good job elsewhere. But in my experience of Will Ferrell, if I had to pick a film to watch that I was ready to believe him in, Stranger Than Fiction would be one of the titles I'd point to.
All right. I really like Will Ferrell. I'm trying to remember where I even first saw him, like when I was a kid. Probably Elf. Elf and Anchorman are really the two things that I cherish the most when it comes to Will Ferrell. But there's a lot of stuff from him that I have never seen. Blades of Glory. I've never seen Talladega Nights.
I love Blades of Glory.
Wait.
Blades of Glory is so funny.
Is it? Okay. Yeah,
That's one of my favorites from him, yes.
I probably need to just do a Will Ferrell binge at some point and catch Stranger Than Fiction and a whole bunch of other stuff. It seems like it's going to be up my alley because the concept seems like it's a lot of fun, and if you're telling me that it's a good movie, then I need to go add it to my watch list. What platform did you say this was on?
This is on Netflix.
Netflix. Nice.
It's easy to access. Yeah, I honestly think you would like this movie.
Nice. Okay. Look at that. We've got all 4 of our movies are over on Netflix. That's pretty cool.
I mean, they're still the juggernaut of the industry, I think. I think Netflix is still the standard bearer. There's a lot of people trying to encroach on the crown, as it were, but so far Netflix is still holding strong, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think 3 years from now, Disney Plus will probably be the crown, but right now they don't have enough new content coming on nearly to the degree that Netflix is like putting out 10 movies a week or some shit. So yeah, Netflix still has the crown, and it'll be a couple of years before anyone takes it from them. But yeah, Stranger Than Fiction. I'm going to go add this to my Netflix page right now.
Awesome. So that gets us through our movies, and because we have no voids, which is sometimes a good thing. Sometimes we don't need that sort of negativity in the air. So we're going to move on to shows, where we're going to do a recommend for both of us, and I have one avoid to talk about real quick. But Logan, let's get to yours. This sounds like another one of those kind of nature-y things. What you got over there?
Yes. All right. So my TV show this week, it is a... I don't know if it's a miniseries or if they're going to make more of it, but they've got 1 season out with 3 episodes, and it came out in 2020. But it's over on Disney Plus. The show is called X-Ray Earth, and the fun thing about this show is each of the 3 episodes breaks down from a scientific point of view what the next, not the next 3. But essentially, each episode looks at an individual potential catastrophe, a natural catastrophe that could happen, will happen one day, could happen in the near future, probably in, thousands of years. But let's see here. First episode looks at a fault line in the Pacific Northwest. Seattle's on this, Portland is on this, and they essentially break down where this fault line is, how often it's moved in the past, and what would happen if a absolutely devastating earthquake were to take place. Like if this fault line did the most damage it could possibly do, the biggest earthquake it could possibly make, what would happen? And they use CGI, they use some really cool X-ray technology where they use sonar to X-ray down into the earth. And so they can create some really fascinating looking 3D models of what this damage would do underneath the earth, and then they'll use CGI to show you what would happen to all the cities and all the people and stuff. Second episode talks about what would happen if one specific volcano across the Atlantic Ocean erupted. If it erupted to its full force, it would create a tidal wave that would span from Maine to Florida, literally the entire East Coast. And the wave would be
that's no big thing.
the wave would be like over 20 feet tall across the entire fucking seaboard.
Get out your swim gear, folks.
Yeah, for real. The third episode looks at I did not take notes. I want to say there's a giant volcano underneath Yosemite. Maybe it's one of those big parks out west that I've never been to. But you're
talking about Montana, the supervolcano?
Maybe that might. Yes, that sounds like you're right. It's
in Yellowstone.
Mind. Yellowstone. Thank you. I've not had enough caffeine today. Yep. But what would happen if that erupted? And basically, like, here's how it's erupted in the past. Here's when we think it's going to erupt now. If it erupted now, like, what would happen? And it is just absolutely fascinating. They don't just look at these natural events. They go and look at other natural catastrophes that have happened. And they're saying, like, okay, well, there's the tsunami in the Indian Ocean in 2004. And here are some reasons why we think that happened. And that tsunami makes us think that this tsunami could actually happen. So it's really fascinating. It's really engaging. Each episode is like 45 minutes. And I like disaster porn. So this show is very, very high quality and absolutely worth the 3 hours or so of your time to watch it.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm ready to handle any more stress in my day-to-day right now, but this does sound like something that would normally be up my alley. I also really love volcanoes. I studied, as nerdy as it sounds, I studied volcanology when I was in high school, all through like high school. It's not the study of Vulcans from Star Trek. It's the study from volcanoes. And I took geology classes and stuff in class. So anything that says we talk about big volcanoes going off and what that would mean, I'm like, ooh, I'll watch that. So at some point I'll give this a check out probably.
Yeah, dude, absolutely right up your alley. One or two of these episodes even references the Mount St. Helens eruption, which is
one of the good ones, and by good I mean terrifying.
Historically the coolest looking eruption that we've ever seen on footage. So
yeah,
super fun and worth checking out if you're an Earth nerd, a science nerd, disaster nerd, masochist nerd, whatever your thing is, it's worth it.
All right, yeah, that's cool. So that gets us to my recommend.
I'm I was about to say tornado, a volcano masochist.
Volcano masochist. I step up to lava closer and closer. So my show that I want to recommend is, I've only seen about half of it so far. So I'm recommending this half that I've seen, but I think it's going to keep going as good as it's going. So on Hulu is a little show that not a lot of people might know. I don't think a whole ton of people watched it. It was called Futurama.
Yeah, no one's ever heard of this show.
Absolutely.
I've never seen it, but I have heard of it.
So you've never seen this show?
No, I've never seen it. The show, I guess, just didn't stick for some reason. But I have seen the first episode.
I agree with you in that sense that when I was younger, I didn't really ever get into this show. And I had a lot of people telling me to watch it. And they were like, it's funny, it's funny, it's funny. And I would catch an episode or at least like a sequence of scenes every now and again. And I'd be like, yeah, that was okay, I got it. But I never got the humor. But my wife has seen all of Futurama and she's a fan. I know Futurama in terms of a lot of spoilers because of memes that have been on the internet. And I've always been curious to know the context behind those memes. So I was like, fine, okay, let's watch Futurama. So I'm on like season 4, episode like 14 or something like that. I can't remember. There's 7 seasons. So I'm almost like exactly halfway through. And I have enjoyed it immensely. Like, it's weirdly still relevant. Like, they make a lot of jokes that can just have like a few titles or like mentions swapped out and it would be completely relevant today. And I think that it's humor I've learned to, in my old age, appreciate Futurama's humor better than I would have if I had seen it when I was younger. So I'm glad I'm experiencing it for the first time now. So that's why I think I would encourage Futurama virgins. If you have any interest in animated humor, like you've seen South Park or any of The Simpsons or Family Guy or Bob's Burgers, if you're a fan of any of that kind of like mixture of shows, I think Futurama is worth a try for sure. I've had a good time with it so far.
All right, nice. I've seen like the first episode of Futurama, but I have not seen anything past that. I've got like this really vague memory from college where I think I was hanging out with a friend or I was like on a date or something, and someone showed me the first episode, but I don't remember watching anything more past that. And I don't really remember, like, I couldn't tell you any of the character names or really anything about Futurama, but the memes are great. I know a lot of the memes from the show, and it does seem like something that I would probably enjoy if I decided to take the time to invest in it. But Futurama, good recommend on your part. You've seen, first half or so of the season, so you've still got 2, 3, 4 seasons left to watch?
Yep, it's 7 seasons. I'm just at like the tail end of season 4 now. So
nice.
I'm looking forward to the end. I know about one of the finales already. It's been spoiled for me, but apparently there are multiple finales for the show. Okay. So I don't remember those. All right. So yeah, I'm curious.
I kind of put Futurama in the same category as something like Rick and Morty. I feel like I have people over the years constantly telling me this would be right up my alley, and I just haven't ever clicked on it. So thank you for reminding me that this is probably something I need to watch at some point.
Yep, that's been the same for me. It just took my wife being like, let's watch this, and I was like, okay. So yeah,
solid.
But all right, so that's Futurama. If you guys haven't seen it or you haven't seen it in a while, I say check it out. It's on Hulu if you can tolerate commercials. But that brings us to my avoid show. Logan didn't see anything this week that detested him quite as much. And I didn't detest this. I was disappointed in this. And so we're going to be talking about Making of Mandalorian, or Making of the Mandalorian, I can't remember which. It's the season 2, quote unquote, on Disney Plus. So Logan, you remember they made the first season of the Making of, and it had episodes divided up as like the first one was about the directors, the next one was about the writing, and the next one was the effects or whatever. So like each one was a different department or section of filmmaking and what it meant to the Mandalorian in the making of season 1. Season 2 comes out and it's one 1 hour episode, and it like scatterbrained kind of hits all of the points and highlights and doesn't really give any it's like Rodriguez directed the episode that Boba Fett came back, and then it cuts to Rodriguez and he's like, I absolutely needed to film the one where Boba Fett came back, and like we were gonna have explosions, it was gonna be really worth the legend that is Boba Fett, and then it cuts to some sizzle footage of them filming, and that's the whole thing. It's very chaotic. And I'm just disappointed because the other one was so comprehensive. What are your thoughts on it initially?
Yeah, I think disappointing is the right word, because it's not bad. Like, it's not like it's poorly made or total shit or anything like that. It's like, as a Star Wars fan, like, it was still enjoyable for me to watch it, but after having that super awesome first season where you get those 8 1-hour episodes, or maybe they're 30 minutes. I think they're 8 30-minute episodes. It's like, okay, here's everything you need to know about how we directed the episodes. And they got all the directors in a round table and they get to talk. Yeah. And then they do that with the actors. And then they do that with the people who did the visual effects and the people who did the sound design. And this one, this was basically a 1-hour version of the 5-minute featurette reels you get at Comic-Con.
Exactly.
You got the exciting score and, like you said, the slow motion sizzle reel, and everyone's laughing and smiling in between cuts and having a great time.
You see George Lucas holding Baby Yoda and people are getting pictures and ha ha ha. Yeah. But we don't know why George Lucas was there. What did he do?
Did he get interviewed for this? No.
How does he feel about Baby Yoda? It's like, I want more substance, and this just kind of felt like the first season was the baking of the cake, and this season was just the icing.
Or a cupcake.
And it has no substance.
A mini cupcake.
A mini cake, yeah. And it's so disappointing, too. And there are a couple highlights. Like, I liked when they talked about Boba Fett and bringing that actor back to play him, and the bits we got of him bringing in the New Zealand culture into Boba Fett and how he advised on the staff that he would use to eviscerate the stormtroopers with in regards to his culture and such. And that was cool. And I liked the other bits as well, but we can't really get around the fact that they ignore completely the Luke part.
Absolutely.
They don't touch it, which makes me wonder if another episode is coming, because how do you not address that? I don't understand how you just straight up ignore it. Yeah. So I'm hoping there's more content to come, but either that or they just were like, no, we're not going to talk about it.
Yeah, I was right there with you. Like, we're getting towards the end, and I'm like, okay, like, we're getting into the last episode, and it's an hour long, so each individual episode might get 10 minutes of total absolute focus. And so it's just so clippy and it's so fast. And then they get to the last episode, and I really, like, they've got a couple of references, I think, maybe, but they don't get into it, like, at all. Like, it's not like they brought in Mark Hamill or even the actor who was there and asked him about it or anything. They didn't, like, talk about, like, here's how we decided to have Luke come back in, and this is how we decided to do the X-Wing and like the hallway scene, and we wanted it to mirror Darth Vader and stuff. Like, I expected them to get into kind of that BTS type content. And it wasn't there. Yeah. I don't know if they're going to come out with anything else. I'm reading an article from Collider right now. They say, according to Disney, the Making of Season 2 special will be a 1-hour long episode.
That was it?
So looks like that's it.
That's disappointing. I don't know why the support for behind the scenes in season 2 was much less than season 1. I don't know. maybe it was a budget thing, but I can't imagine it's a budget thing.
Yeah, maybe season 1 didn't get the clicks that they needed to warrant the time to make the documentary style season 2.
Maybe.
That bums me out though, because like you and I were talking 1 episode ago, 2 episodes ago, maybe it was even off recording, but we were talking about how like more subscription services should be including those special features that you normally get like on the Blu-ray pack, or the DVD pack, and you get like all the deleted scenes, you get all the actor interviews, and all this awesome nerdy BTS content. And I think some platforms are starting to get there a little bit more, but it's nowhere near where it needs to be. And this right here is where they should have put another full 8-episode season.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, we've talked about it a couple times how the behind the scenes stuff is super lacking. And I agree. Netflix has some titles that I've seen, mostly originals, I think, that on like when you click on them and bring up their info, I think there's a section that says like special features or, special or something. Extras,
something like that.
And so you can do that on some stuff, but like it's by, far and away nowhere near the majority. And I think that the world is somewhat starved of this behind the scenes stuff. Definitely not the majority, because yes, behind the scenes for Mandalorian is not going to get the same amount of clicks as the show The Mandalorian. That's just a fact. But I would still like to see classy behind the scenes stuff, and this just didn't really hit it. I wanted the same level of effort, and it seems like we got an hour-long highlight reel. And I didn't want a highlight reel, y'all. That's not what I wanted. They talk about how the medium, the big thing that they film on, that HD screen, essentially, that makes the backgrounds, for lack of an easier description, they talk about how it's bigger, it's more impressive this season. Why and how, they don't bother to explain. I have no idea why it's bigger, why it's better. They don't really get into the technicals at all. And it's disappointing as hell, because the first season really focused on the medium and showed how it was really affecting filmmaking. And if this technology continues to accelerate like it is, I think will completely change the industry 100%. And they're just not talking about it.
Yeah, I think what was the name of the virtual dome room?
I think it's called the medium.
I don't know. That doesn't sound... I don't know. Either way, yes, that technology I think is the future, because it lets you go to so many places in one place. Like, you can do so much with one room, and I absolutely love it. The special effects looked incredible in the first season. They looked even better in the second season. I really enjoyed it. So I think the last thing I'll say here is I'm kind of scrolling through Disney Plus right now, and I might need to walk something back because I'm looking at a bunch of Marvel movies, and there is a tab that says extras, and I'm looking at Endgame right now, and there are at least 30 different extras underneath this category. One of them is an audio commentary with the Russo brothers. It's 182 minutes long.
Well, it's probably because it encompasses the entire film.
Exactly. And I didn't know that was on there. They've got a bunch of deleted scenes in here. They've got all kinds of like, here's how we casted Tony Stark. Here's how we casted Captain America. All kinds of really cool stuff. They've got like an 8-minute remembering Stan Lee thing in here, a 20-minute Tony Stark tribute. All kind, 5-minute, like the women of the MCU kind of stuff. So there is a bunch of content in there. I don't know if it's the same kind of BTS stuff that we're talking about when it comes to like, we want to talk to the creators and engineers of the show and actually learn what went through their brains when they created certain elements of the show.
Yeah.
But either way, this particular season 2 1-hour special was disappointing compared to the first season.
Absolutely.
And it's fun, light, and fluffy, but it doesn't have the meat that I think warrants an hour of your time.
Especially that. Oh, and I looked it up. It's called The Volume, not The Medium.
Volume, yes.
Yep. So, yeah, I redeemed myself. But I agree. Too light and fluffy. I need more cake, less icing. But, so I'll give it like a 6 out of 10, and I'll give the first season like an 8 out of 10. So moving on to our podcast recommend, where we're going to feature a quick 30-second ad for a fellow podcast in the underground world and the underdog environment where we're not getting, Joe Rogan numbers, but we're all still here to entertain. We want to feature someone who deserves a shot at your attention in addition to this show here. So we'll see you back in just a few seconds.
Do you get mad when listening to true crime? Well, so do I. If you want a weekly true crime podcast that says what you're thinking, then grab a beer and pull up a deck chair. This is Cambo from True Crime Island, another true crime podcast, and maintain the rage with me. Visit truecrimeisland.com where you can download or stream each episode, plus there's links to iTunes and social media. And as I always say, don't forget to delete your browser history. This is True Crime Island.
Hey, thanks for sticking around. Hopefully that sounded like it piqued your interest. Otherwise, we're going to get into the report back section. This is where we talk about movies that we were assigned last show and had to watch and formulate and percolate thoughts on for this show. So, Logan, let's get into yours since we were very me in my show section. Let's get to your movie. You saw Chef on Netflix. What did you think of this show?
All right. So Jacqueline and I liked this so much. We've actually watched this twice now.
Nice.
We really enjoyed Chef. This was an absolute, I think I used the word delight when I was talking about this last time. Delight is the perfect word. This is an absolutely charming movie. So the story here, Jon Favreau is playing a head chef named Carl Casper, and he is, movie starts off, and he is basically kind of falling behind in every area of his life. He is the head chef of a restaurant, but his glory days seem to be about 10 years ago, and now he's kind of being more or less handcuffed by the owner, played by Dustin Hoffman. His staff loves him. Everyone really likes him. But for some reason, it doesn't seem to have met the potential that he at least feels that he has for himself.
Hate that. I hate that feeling.
Yeah. He is divorced from Sofia Vergara. That is his ex-wife. Together, they have a son. I'm trying to remember what his son's name is. I think it's Percy. Percy. Percy is the name of their kid. And his kid, looks up to him. His dad is awesome. His dad is amazing. But the problem is, because his parents are divorced, he never really gets to see his dad. And when he does get to see his dad is basically
too busy?
Yeah, absolutely way too busy, because he's always on the cusp of something great at work, but it's never coming to fruition. So he always feels like if he lets up on the gas pedal, everything will just come crumbling down. So his way of hanging out with this kid is he picks him up, gets him a couple hours a week. So he picks him up, and then they go do something where they watch other people do things. It's a very passive relationship. They go to games and they watch athletes, or they go to the movies and they watch movies.
Yes.
There's no actual relationship, no actual communication, involvement. It's I'm going to pick you up. We're going to ride in the car for 15 minutes, sit next to each other, not talk for 2 or 3 hours. Then I'm going to take you home and see you next Saturday. And that's kind of the first act of the movie. Right in the IMDb description, you see a head chef quits his restaurant job. So it's no spoilers to say that he gets into a screaming match with the owner, and he walks out, and he has to figure out, okay, what am I going to do with my life now? I was this big super celebrity chef, and now I've kind of fallen from disgrace. So what am I going to do? He ends up deciding that he is going to do the food truck route. And that is where the movie just becomes a fucking joy to watch, because you really see that he is rediscovering his own passion while also being able to have the control that he needs to put out the food and the quality that he needs. So what really, where this movie gets completely in its groove is you've got Jon Favreau, his best friend, John Leguizamo, and their Jon Favreau's kid, Percy. The three of them pretty much go on a cross-country trip with this food truck.
Cool.
And the kid is in charge of the Twitter account, the marketing and the promotion and stuff. So he's sitting in the back of the food truck while they're going down the highway, on our way to Texas, come see us at such and such a street or whatever. And they get there, and then there's this huge line of people waiting for them because he's this big celebrity chef. And it's so much fun. The score is super electric. There's a ton of Latin culture in this movie because his wife is from Miami. I think that's where he was originally from too, Miami, and Miami is where he goes to get the food truck. This movie, dude, it knocks it out of the park. It's one of those inspiring, motivating movies that will make you want to get off your ass and completely rearrange your life. It's just so good. Full-hearted recommend. The only negative thing that I want to say about Chef, honestly, is probably the most surprising part of it for me is Robert Downey Jr.'s character sticks out like a sore thumb.
Oh, that sucks.
It's just weird. He plays this completely kooky rich guy, and it's almost it is too on the nose for me, for Robert Downey Jr. He's just... He says things in the one scene in the movie that he's in, he says things and you're just like, holy shit, like this guy does not belong in this movie. Like something's just he's just a little bit too bizarre for me. Like one example, he's a germaphobe. So he makes everyone in the office wear like those blue footsies things over their shoes so they don't track dirt in. And it's just, there's some weird jokes that come with that. Robert Downey Jr. it's fine. Like it's not anything serious to critique, but it is the only real complaint that I could have against the movie. Scarlett Johansson is in here playing one of his waitresses. She's really, really fun in this movie. Amy Sedaris is in here. She's great. Oliver Platt is a food critic. Jon Favreau and Oliver Platt get into a huge Twitter war. You get to see Jon Favreau discover Twitter. His character doesn't know what Twitter is, so he gets a Twitter. And he got a really bad review from this food critic. So he goes on Twitter. He thinks that he's private messaging the food critic, but it's all public and he doesn't know it. So he says some really nasty shit to this food critic. Wow. And he goes absolutely viral. There's so much to love about this movie. It's just one of those really good, like, feel life movies. And I have not enjoyed one of those, like, real life, feel good, emotional, inspiring dramas like this in a long, long time. Glowing review for Chef. I don't know why I haven't watched this movie in the last 6 or 7 years. I think everyone needs to go see this.
Oh, yeah. That pretty much sold me on watching it. I mean, like, I love movies that are about cooking, and I love movies that are about what you said, like inspirational real life, get 'em story. And, there's a lot of cooking movies that I'm a fan of. One of them has Aaron Eckhart and Catherine Zeta-Jones in it, and I cannot remember the name of that movie for the life of me, but it is one of my favorites.
That doesn't sound familiar. I know what's the one where Bradley Cooper's playing like an angry asshole chef, Burning or something like that?
Something like that. I never saw that one. This one's, the Catherine Zeta-Jones one is called No Reservations.
Neither.
It's from 2007. It's an older
right.
film, but I enjoyed that one. Not to say that it's necessarily on par or even comparable to Chef. I've never seen Chef, but it makes it seem like it's right up my alley. It's basically what I'm trying to get at. So I'm curious to check that out now that you've enjoyed it so much. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, I rarely give 10s out, so I'm giving this a 9 just because I don't know that this is on the same level as something like Indiana Jones, Back to the Future, The Dark Knight, something like that. But loved it about as much as you can possibly love a 9. This does have an 87% on Rotten Tomatoes with an 85% audience score.
Oh, right. So that's cool. So everyone go see Chef. Otherwise, that brings us to my report back, which is going to be a little bit less enthusiastic. Let's be real.
I'm not shocked to hear that. I think it's hard to bring the kind of enthusiasm that I brought to a movie like There Will Be Blood, because it's 2.5 hours of slowness for me. So what did you think? Like, I know I kind of warned about a couple of things. I'm very curious to see if you're just gonna completely shit on this or if there was some redeeming qualities. But tell me what you think.
Let's start with the good. So the good is at a late point in the film, as I was musing about it and looking back on, because I knew I was nearing the end. And thinking back whilst I watched the end on the beginning of the film, I thought about how Daniel Day-Lewis's character is in contrast to his character Lincoln. Because Lincoln's one of those movies that's super long, super slow, and but I enjoyed the holy moly out of it. And I didn't enjoy the holy moly out of this. The main reason is it's under-edited in a not good way. There are shots that dwell for way too long, and they're almost always medium wides. It's a medium wide stagnant camera that just has actors performing something in front of. So like, for example, at one point his kid does something bad and endangers his life while he's asleep. So they resolve the situation, and Daniel Day-Lewis goes chasing after his boy as he runs away to escape consequences. And we see the whole chase down as he catches the boy. Then they go behind a bush as he's like hoisting him up in his arms. They're behind the bush for a bit, so we don't even see anyone at this point. The frame is blank. Nothing's even happening because this is a huge, like, big old bush that's in the way. Finally, they come out from behind it on the other side and start walking back. And we see like 2/3 of their walk back to the house before the camera ever cuts to the next shot/scene. It's like a 2-minute shot for and it happens super often.
And I'm guessing there's like no dialogue in moments like that.
No, none. And I know I said I was going to start on the positives, and so that was a negative. So let's go to another positive. So let's try to balance this out. Another positive is, the film has interesting frames a lot of the times. There's not anything negative to say about the cinematography itself. Not to say that the editing is good, because it's not. The other thing that stood in contrast to what could have been a good film is the music. They needed to change the music in this film. I don't know who got the idea that long shots of Daniel Day-Lewis just riding his horse in a gentle countryside with no danger required freaky deaky string instrument playing. I'm talking like the horror movie, like music, and it goes on for minutes, and nothing is happening on screen. It's just a man traveling gently through the forest. It's like, what am I supposed to be feeling? Am I supposed to be panicked? Is this supposed to be a reflection of his state of mind? Is it just really shitty music mixing for a film? I think so. And and then I complimented his acting. I'll compliment what's his name's acting? Paul Dano. Paul Dano did a good job. The twin thing was super fucking confusing because they didn't address it directly for way too long. The fact that Paul Dano shows up as one brother and then you see his other brother's a twin, but no one says anything like, you must be a twin. It's like left in the air, so it's enough time for you to go, wait, so is it a twin? Or did he come in disguise when he first met Daniel Day-Lewis? What the fuck? And then finally someone makes a reference to the other brother, like 15, 20 minutes later. And it's like, okay, so now we're here. And then you feel like you could start understanding this new brother. So you wasted all that 15, 20 minutes just like wondering what you were doing. And then you could finally get into it. The preacher character was odd, especially considering the biography of this film, the summary, I should say, basically says that Daniel Day-Lewis's character is, an enthusiastic oiled man who butts heads with a preacher. Considering that he's mentioned in the summary and he seems to be the main antagonist, doesn't seem like Daniel Day-Lewis is all that put on upon by the preacher. He wins. In almost every single regard of this movie, Daniel Day-Lewis wins. There's one scene that the preacher gets that he gets the one-up on Daniel Day-Lewis pretty much.
Right.
And that's it.
You're talking about the church scene?
Yeah.
I abandoned my child!
And speaking of the child, that was confusing as shit. Like, I had a suspicion that maybe he was just using the boy as a nice face to get good deals in business early on in the film, but it was never explicitly said. And there were a lot of scenes that went out of its way to prove that wasn't the case and that Daniel Day-Lewis was actually being as good as he could be father to this boy, given the kind of strange person he was. But the moment the boy has an accident, the switch just turns on in Daniel Day-Lewis's character and he immediately just becomes cold and nothing. Just everything redeeming about Daniel Day-Lewis's character immediately goes poof and is gone for the rest of the movie. And that's still like a whole other movie to go. That's like halfway through the film. So basically, Daniel Day-Lewis plays what I feel like two different characters. And I don't think that's in a good way because, man, that confrontation scene between him and his son at the end of the film.
Oh, yeah.
That scene was uncomfortable, felt, because it was a time jump, it felt out of nowhere. Daniel Day-Lewis is like deteriorating mental state through the film. I didn't understand. I didn't know if it was because of stress from work, if he was just a distrusting psycho. I know he had the incident with his brother, so to speak, but like that seemed like an outlier experience, not something that was constantly driving him more towards the edge. But apparently he was approaching the edge this entire film, and I never noticed. He just seemed like an ambitious businessman who was having a lot of success getting oil. Like, he had a lot of success, and it seems like it was still driving him crazy. The end of the film was chaotic as shit. I did not understand why it happened because I just didn't. Because the film time jumps to that point and it's like, now here's the end and the movie's over. And I was like, okay, I feel like nothing was resolved and everything's worse. So I don't know.
You're talking about the bowling alley
yes,
scene?
Yes, the bowling alley scene.
Yeah, I've had to watch that several times, and I'm right there with you. Those last kind of confrontation scenes, because you got like, okay, he's going to confront his son one last time in the movie, and then, or be confronted by, and then he will be confronted by the Paul Dano preacher like one last time towards the end. I agree with you. Like those are two scenes that I've had to go back and rewatch them several times to feel like I understand what's going on. But even now, like it's been 3 years since I've seen the movie, so I'm super fuzzy on it.
I mean, all it is just the son comes in and says, I want to make my own company. I want to do what you did and make my own way in the world. And instead of his dad going, oh, that's very admirable of you. I wish you all the best. He goes, you're not even mine. You're a bastard in a basket. You weren't my child, and you're my competitor now. I'm going to crush you in the company world. You're my competitor, you bastard in a basket. I'm like, okay, I guess we're here now. And then the Paul Dano scene is just the preacher popping up and asking for basically just asking for the money that Daniel Day-Lewis agreed to give him in exchange for the oil on land that he was an interested party in years ago. Like, he promised him money in a deal in trade of land and oil years ago and just never paid up. Just didn't. At one point when he does ask for the money, Daniel Day-Lewis just literally crams him into a mud pit and threatens to bury him in the ground. And so Daniel Day-Lewis is the villain here. Yeah, Paul Dano's character is a psycho. No doubt about that. Definitely a sociopath to some degree. But he was beset upon by a bigger psychopath. And when he asks for the money that he's owed, and he's in a bad place, obviously, in this scene, Daniel Day-Lewis just murders him. For I don't know why their relationship turns violent there. I mean, yes, it's been violent, but in this moment, nothing was really provoking it at all. It just does. And then the movie ends. That's just how the movie ends. And it's got to be like a 4 out of 10. Because while there's all these pieces in there to make it a good movie, it could have been an epic without the drawn out shots. It would have been emotionally more constructed and more fluid if the music had actually gone in line with the themes and emotions of the scene, as scene to scene. If Daniel Day-Lewis's character was more consistent and his trials and tribulations that push his mental state to murder were more consistent, then it would have been fine. Because as I've said, I like Lincoln. I'm no stranger to really long, slow movies. I like The Judge, also a slow movie in some regards, and Troy. Try and watch the director's cut of Troy. That's a slow-ass movie.
Oof. I can't. Isn't the normal version already 2 hours and 45 minutes or something like that?
Yeah, the director's cut's almost 3 hours, I think.
I've been thinking about rewatching that again just because I wanna go back to the Big Sandals and Swords movies. I haven't seen that one in a while, but yeah, it's long.
It is very long.
Yeah, 2 hours and 43 minutes. I was 2 minutes off with my guess. Look at me.
Look at me. But yeah, so it's just not there. I don't know why. But there's just too much that's a little off kilter and off base in this film, and ends up rippling effect throughout the entire movie. I mean, the movie starts with like a 10-minute silent like section, like no one speaks.
Right.
All you hear is the environmental sounds, grunts from the people, and I think some minimal music. But that artistic choice of giving that first 10 minutes all silence sacrifices a lot of development time in your movie. Even though this is a long movie, that's still a certain amount of time that you're allocated to provide who your characters are, what their motivations are, what their position is in the world, what their ambitions are. You know, like what all of that ends up being pushed down the line along with everything else. And as you go, the effects of your past choices get bigger and bigger and bigger in a good or bad way. And I think in this way, it ripple effect in a bad way. So I think it's just not that. I think it's way overbloated in terms of its popularity. I've heard a lot of people talk about There Will Be Blood. It is a good acting piece. Paul Dano and Daniel Day-Lewis and a few other actors do a very good job in the film. The film itself just does not hold water.
That is completely fair. I remember really disliking it the first time I watched it at home, and I liked it a lot more when I saw it in theaters, but I haven't seen it again since. So I tend to think There Will Be Blood is kind of one of those movies that because everyone else says they like it, a lot of people say, well, I like it too.
Maybe, yeah.
Like, I'm looking at this movie on Letterboxd. There are 213,000 ratings for this movie. 43% of them gave it a 10 out of 10.
Wow.
And that's just high for me.
That's a lot.
It's high. It's not even if you like, let's talk about like rewatchability and entertainment value. Like those are two really, really crucial aspects to a movie. And this movie is like 0 out of 10 for me in both of those categories. I think there are extremely entertaining scenes, particularly the church scene and then the bowling alley scene, I think will warrant the praise most people give it. But there's so much, like, I'm right there with you. Really, my biggest complaint with this movie was how much I felt like it was wasting my time looking at really long, slow scenes where there's no characters, no dialogue, nothing is happening. You're just, like, soaking up this Western environment and like, feeling a sense of dread, I guess. I mean, this movie's tagline was, what was it? Like, there will be vengeance, there will be revenge, there will be greed, I'm trying to remember, something like that. So I think this movie is supposed to be about a super evil, greedy person who does a really, really, lives a really, really bad life. But there don't seem to be a whole lot of repercussions for him. I mean, I guess you could say that in his view, there are no repercussions and he's won at everything. I think a healthy individual would look at his life and say, what a sad, pitiful little man who cares more about money than about people. He really seems like Mr. Potter from It's a Wonderful Life. And I don't enjoy characters like that. Especially if the movie itself isn't like all that entertaining. Yeah. Like I'm all down watching movies about really awful assholes. Like I've talked about that already in this episode. But I think there's a difference between something like The Social Network, which I would give a 10 out of 10, and it's about an evil asshole. Well, I don't know if Zuckerberg is evil, but, you know, an asshole.
A dislikable asshole, yeah.
Sure, yes. Or as Rashida Jones will tell him, you're not an asshole, you're just trying to be. But then you've got somebody like, what's his character's name? Plainview, who is really, at the end of the day, to me, just straight up a greedy, evil bastard who only cares about money and profit and quality. And if you cross him when it comes to quality, or you cross him when it comes to his money, like he will go out of his way to vindictively ruin your life or end it.
Yeah, and it doesn't track with his character as it's established early in the film. Well, his son isn't disabled, because that seems to be the dividing line. When his son and him first arrive in the community where he makes most of his money, his son observes that his friend in the family that this all started with, Mary, the daughter of the family the preacher is in, is beaten by her father if she doesn't pray. And he makes this observation to Daniel Lewis. Daniel Lewis doesn't say anything at the time, but then later on, he slights the preacher by not allowing him to bless the well when they first start the oil well, but favors Mary and uses a line to describe her that the preacher wanted used to describe him, and proceeds to ensure that the father doesn't beat her anymore. and favors his son playing with her. He like hugs her and is warm towards her as an individual as well, and is more nurturing than her own father was. And so it implies that he is a decent person in that regard. Yeah, he's a little strange about how he does it, and it seems like he could do it without rustling as many feathers as he did. But regardless, the end goal was a small girl not being beaten anymore. Seems like a worthy cause. And then at the end, by the end of the movie, he's a murderous, evil, dictator asshole. I don't know where the line was. It seems to be when his son gets disabled, but that doesn't feel like a valid splitting point.
Right.
So
I don't remember anything about like the preacher's girl or anything like that. So thank you for bringing that up, because you're right. Like there are some redeeming qualities to him as a character. I don't think I'd ever want to be in the same room as someone like this guy.
No.
He's
unnerving.
Yeah, unnerving and unsettling for sure. So I think this, to me, probably is going to end up fitting in the same category as movies like Taxi Driver or even the new Joker movie, where everyone else just sees this incredible, beautiful, dark, seedy movie, and I'm just not there, dude. Just not there for it. So
I agree. Same here.
I think there's a lot to like, but from an emotional perspective, at least if I'm going to take my like movie critic hat off and just talk about this as a fan, this is not a movie you're going to rewatch like multiple times, and there's not a lot of entertainment value in this movie either. So those are two big things that I think this movie kind of messes up.
I agree. I think that's all that needs to be said, because that pretty much sums up my feelings right there.
Nice.
Then the comparisons too, nailed it on the head.
Nice. Well, that takes us up to the last part of the episode. We're going to get into assigning each other movies for next week. So I'm going to go ahead and throw you your assignment, John. So let's see here.
What am I seeing?
Next week, you need to watch Ad Astra.
Nice.
This is when did this come out? 2018 or was it 2019?
Really pretty recently. It was either 19 or 18, definitely close by.
I know it wasn't. Yeah, 2019. This is the space drama, as I understand it, kind of like an adventure drama, right?
It's got some adventure. I've seen little bits of it, and my brother is a huge fan of this movie. And it's kind of melancholy space opera, but not really, but less on the opera side.
Interesting.
It has elements of wide expanse moments. There's a pirate battle on the moon, but that sounds more epic than it ends up being. I've seen that scene.
I've heard a lot of people say that, like, yeah, there's a pirate battle scene, but saying that sentence is a lot cooler than watching the scene.
Oh yes, very much so.
That's what I've heard.
Not a whole ton happens in the scene. I appreciate it because the scene, as far as I remember it, is pretty much in line with how a battle on the moon in our current technological level would look like. And it's interesting to see in that way. But it's not like huge, like freaking Transformers slamming into each other or anything. It's a very understated affair. And that seems to be the entire movie, taking this epic concept of space travel, and kind of bring it down to the most, I guess, easy to conceive and realistic situation with science fiction thrown in there, obviously. And so I'm curious. My brother will definitely be glad I've seen this. He's going to want to hear what I think about it for sure.
Okay, all right. And I plan on watching this along with you because I would like to see this as well. So I guess the main reason I'm assigning this is because of Brad Pitt. I recently showed Moneyball to Jacqueline, and neither one of us give a flying fart about baseball, but man, I love Moneyball. That is such a great movie. So I was thinking, what else is Brad Pitt in that I haven't seen lately? And Ad Astra came to mind. It's over on HBO Max. I've got access to it. I've had access to it for, 6 months, 9 months, and just haven't clicked play, but I will watch it alongside you this week and see what the fuss is about. I'm curious if we're going to have massively differing opinions here. Normally we're pretty close. We've got an 83% on Rotten Tomatoes and a 40% audience score.
Damn, that's a big split.
Yeah, so I'm very curious to see if one of us likes this movie and the other one doesn't, or vice versa.
So I'll be watching Ad Astra. I'll go ahead and sign you yours, and this is one that I might watch alongside you because it's very famous in the world of the internet, and it's very famous in the world of a lot of the of actors that have that action Western aesthetic, like Val Kilmer, Kurt Russell, Sam Elliott. I'm talking about Tombstone.
Nice.
The 1993 Western. It's about Wyatt Earp and his brothers Morgan and Virgil have left their gunslinger ways behind them to settle down and start a business in the town of Tombstone. While they aren't looking to find trouble, trouble soon finds them when they become targets of the ruthless cowboy gang. Now, together with Wyatt's best friend, Doc Holliday, the brothers pick up their guns once more to restore order to a lawless land. I mean, honestly, it sounds right up my alley. I love Westerns. I've watched all the spaghetti Westerns. I've got a bunch of Clint Eastwood Westerns outside of those. I watched a lot of John Wayne growing up with my grandpa. This is pretty much young me to a T. So I am curious to watch this. I've seen GIFs and memes and jokes about this, especially about Doc Holliday, Val Kilmer's character. And I think having the context of what the internet constantly salivates about would be fun as well. So Logan, what do you think about this film?
So I think I saw Tombstone as a kid, but I really don't have any memory of this movie. I have a vague recollection of a couple of like shoot or bar saloon shootout scenes, but I don't really know much about this movie. I feel like most of what I know could be kind of populated through the pop culture subconscious, just from, YouTube videos and all that kind of stuff. I think we've mentioned this movie very, very briefly on Film Rush before, because you, I think, assigned me Unforgiven back in 2018 or 2019.
I don't remember.
A long time ago, I think you assigned me Unforgiven. And I thought I was about to watch Tombstone, and it took me about 20 or 30 minutes to figure out that this was not the movie with Val Kilmer and Kurt Russell.
That isn't Val Kilmer.
So, yes, Tombstone, I'm very, very excited to check this out. I feel like this is generally regarded as one of the biggest and the best action Western movies. And, I mean, the IMDb... let me just restart that. The IMDb page... is like making me salivate. Like, okay, so you got Kurt Russell, Val Kilmer, Sam Elliott, Bill Paxton, Powers Booth, Charlton Heston, Stephen Lang, Thomas Hayden Church. Like, my goodness, that is absolutely insane, and I'm leaving a lot of people out too. So I'm very excited about this movie. Growing up in Texas, I watched a ton of Westerns as a kid, so I'm really, really excited to jump back into this genre, because it's been a while since I've watched a Western movie, especially one that's as popular and liked as Tombstone is.
Yeah, I'd say the most recent Western that I've watched that is also recent was the remake of The Magnificent Seven, with Chris Pratt and Denzel Washington.
I forgot I saw that one. Yeah.
That's a pretty decent one, but I wouldn't say that that's going to be in the legend, the lexicon of Westerns, I would say. Though I did watch The Magnificent Seven from like the 80s or 70s, I can't remember which, for certain. I've watched that 1,000 times as a kid. It's one of my favorite Westerns. So, yeah, I may very well watch this alongside you. So, cool. So I'm going to be watching... Ad Astra, you're going to be watching Tombstone, and we might cross-pollinate this week. That'd be interesting to see. So otherwise, that seems to be the end of the episode.
It does.
We've done our time. We've said our piece. Now it's time to hear from you. If you have any comments or anything you want to say to us, we have a lot of social media links down below. We have Facebook, Twitter, Letterboxd. We have an email you can use as well if you want to get right at us directly into the brainstem. Otherwise, you could follow us on any of our platforms that our podcast is located on. We're primarily on SoundCloud, iTunes, and Spotify. We're also on YouTube. All of these episodes are uploaded on Thursdays after the Wednesday of the initial release for everybody on YouTube. So subscribe to us there. We'll also be releasing additional content outside of the podcast episodes on YouTube as time permits. So you'll get some extra stuff there. So just keep an eye out for that whenever it arrives. Otherwise, thanks for sticking around till the end of the episode. We're really glad to have you, and we hope to see you next week when we report back and bring some more content. Logan, let's say goodbye.
I drink your milkshake.